welcome back guys to another video, and thank you very much for joining me once again. In this week's video we're going to take a look at fire lighting. So thank you for joining me here once again guys. We are back out for another video. In this week's video, as I say, we're going to take a look at fire lighting, but I don't mean how to light a fire. I mean what we're gonna use to light the fire if we're using man-made materials. So we're going to keep this quick, keep this brief, but first things first, I want to make sure everyone is clear that, make sure if you are going to light fires when you're out in the woods or in wild spaces in general, that you do have the landowner's permission or you know the laws in your area, and make sure to keep it controlled and safe. Forest fires kill a lot of things and a lot of people, so just bear that in mind. So what I've got here beside me is a selection of items that I would or do carry for fire lighting. So we're going to start with the first category, which is fire steels. So yes, fire steels. They're a big part of the bushcraft community. I like them. Simple as that, right? Basically what it is a metal alloy. It's a metal alloy that when you scrape it with another metal, like a piece of steel or like the back of your knife blade for example, they produce a cluster of very hot sparks. So quickly, I do want to cover something that you will hear a lot of different names when folk refer to these things. I call it a fire steel or a ferro rod. Either of those two is probably the most common. There is a misconception. Folk refer to these as flint and steels. These are not flint and steels. This is not flint. This is developed based on a very traditional skill of flint and steel fire making, which personally I don't have any experience of, and thus I'm not going to discuss today. It is something that I'm going to look into, but we're going to stick to what I know for this video. So these are not flint and steels, these are fire steels or ferro rods. Ferro is short for ferrocerium, which I believe, don't quote me, but I presume this would, and this makes sense, that is the name of the alloy that is used in this. So why do we like them so much? Or let's actually start by saying fire steels are my go-to, my primary fire lighting method. I'm going to use a couple of different terms in this video. I'm going to refer to things as primary and as go-to. So to quickly cover what that means, primary, I'm referring to what I'm going to use first time if I have the choice, or if we're in a very gentle situation, a very casual situation, that's what I'm going to use. A go-to item, which we will come to in a minute, is what I'm going to use if there is a problem, or if this fails, I'm going to go to my go-to. If we're in an emergency, I'm going to use the go-to. So hopefully that is clear. So yes, fire steels or ferro rods are my primary fire lighting method. I have this specific one, in my pocket when I'm out doing anything bushcraft on this lanyard. So lots of different companies make them. You can get really expensive ones, you can get middle of the road ones, you can get decently pretty good priced ones like this one, and you can also get some much cheaper ones. This one is made by Peter Foz from Forest Bushcraft. He started making these. I don't know if he still does. These have a little quick release thing, so it's pretty cool. You can attach it to your belt or whatever, leave it in your pocket, and then all you have to do is pull it out and pull it off, and it comes loose, and then you can just reattach it, and it's really nice. This throws a good range of sparks as well. So why do I like them so much? It's as simple as they're reliable, they work when they're wet, and providing you know how to get a fire going in terms of the natural materials, these is you do need a relatively small sized tinder to get this going, so something along the lines of birch bark scrapings and shavings works perfectly. So you've got some other ones, you've got a much nicer one here. This is also by Peter. I've not even used this one yet. This is also by him. This is I believe an oak handle. I think that one is beech. Don't quote me on that, I might be wrong. But this one, rather than the quick release, has just got your standard lanyard hole. This one here is a little bit battered up. This was the one I was using for a long time. This came with my TBS Boar bushcraft knife. But this is quite a hefty one, but still just as good quality. And you also get these ones. You get the brightly coloured cheap ones that actually throw, and this one comes with a little striker. These throw incredibly big, bright and hot showers of sparks. They just don't look quite as nice. So in terms of ferro rods, what I tend to be carrying is I tend to be carrying this one in my pocket. That's my left kind of top hand pocket. And then in my, this is actually the one out of my Possibles pouch, my Max Edition Possibles pouch. That's where this tends to live, so if I've got a backpack, I've always got two. Now, one point I do need to make about ferro rods is there is quite a bit of controversy online, especially on YouTube and stuff, of people saying or telling folk not to carry ferro rods because they're a waste of time or whatever it might be. Now, almost all of the people that are saying these things are coming from one particular point, and it's a point that I agree with, but I don't agree with the don't carry it always way that they tend to frame the argument. The issue that a lot of these people are raising is that people don't know how to use these. They're seeing them on YouTube, so they're carrying them anyway. If you're going to carry any piece of equipment, know how to use it. Even if you're going to carry something like a lighter, know how to use it. Because if you don't, you're just wasting energy carrying it. Even if it's something small, it adds up. So if you're carrying a ferro rod and you don't know how to use it, or you know how to use it but you've not used it in a while, practice. That's exactly the reason why a ferro rod is my primary fire lighting. Because if a survival situation happens and I have a ferro rod and I haven't practiced using it enough, I'm not going to be able to get a fire going. A lighter you don't need to practice with. A ferro rod you do. If you want to be able to get a fire going efficiently every time, you need to practice. So if you're going to carry kit, know how to use it and practice using it. So moving on to our second item for fire lighting, we're referring to lighters. So yes, the humble lighter, Bic lighter, or whatever kind of company you want to go with. Super cheap, super self-explanatory, everybody knows what a lighter is, but there's a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, a lighter of some variety. So this is like one that's got like not a lot of fuel left in it, and a sparker in it, whereas this one has the kind of traditional ferro rod wheel to light it. Lighters are my go-to fire lighting method or item. So that's again referring back to that primary and go-to. So if we're in an emergency situation and I need to get a fire going, I'm gonna go for a lighter like that. You know, no question, I'm just going for a lighter. But again, it still you still need to know how to get a fire going properly in the outdoors. But if you do, you can very easily get a fire going with a lighter, and that's why it's my go-to. So I always have, in addition to my ferro rod in my pocket, I always have a lighter in my cargo pocket of my trousers, and I also always have a second lighter in my Possibles pouch. In fact, this lighter is in my Possibles pouch, and then I have a number of others that I rotate through that I carry in my pockets. Lighters are super self-explanatory, but these spin style with a wheel, which is actually a small amount of the same alloy as the ferro rods, these don't work when they're wet. You kind of have to dry them out, so that is one downside of them. If they are really wet, they won't light at all. But well, and if they run out of fuel, which is a concern that a lot of people make or have, you can actually just use the spark from the wheel. If you remove the metal, you can use just the spark to get something like birch bark scrapings or bracken and things like that lit. So yeah, that's kind of it for lighters. They're very self-explanatory, everybody kind of knows how they work, but I do recommend them. I do still think, even though a lot of people want to do the really full bushcraft thing, not using the man-made stuff, just have a lighter anyway, just as a backup. And now for our final fire lighting item, we're going to talk about matches. So again, this one is very self-explanatory and most people know what matches are. You might be thinking that doesn't look like a matchbox, and it's not, because I don't carry a matchbox, because matchboxes just get wet. So what I've got here is the UCO Titan Stormproof matches. That's not what I'm carrying, but that is the case I'm carrying them in. The Stormproof matches are good, but I found that, and I can throw up a clip, I think, or some photos or something of it. The issue I find with the Stormproof matches is because they burn for so long and you physically can't put them out. You put them underwater, you take them back out, they keep going. At least the Titan ones do. I found that if I'm just trying to light a stove or something, it's a bit too much. So what I have just put in here is just your standard Cook's matches. Now, I would actually recommend that if you're going to carry matches, you carry stronger and larger matches than these, like the extra long matches. So I've got a bundle of them in there, and I've also stashed a little bit of cotton wool in the lid there. That comes in handy. Now, I don't tend to carry matches, simply because I've got these other two systems and they both stay within themselves. Matches, you end up with a burnt out match at the end, and I know you could just burn it off in the fire, but there's a little bit of waste involved there, so I tend to avoid them. But it's still important to know how to use them, so make sure that you know a proper way to light a match without it snapping, and I will leave some links up in the cards in the description to videos if I can find them. I think Paul Kirtley over at Frontier Bushcraft has done videos on that, or there will be others online as well. Again, super simple matches, everybody kind of gets what they are, but again, you still need to know how to physically do the fire in order for it to work. So to kind of conclude to the end of this, what I quickly want to cover is what I recommend hands down. Now, as I say, personally, primary fire lighting method is a ferro rod, secondary is a lighter. But if you're a beginner and you're not exactly sure on what to do, my recommendation, or not, if you're a beginner and you're not overly proficient with skills like ferro rods, my recommendation is matches primary, lighter secondary. And in fact, my recommendation for anybody who is fire lighting, a lighter should be your secondary and go-to fire lighting method. No matter what skill level you are, you should always have a lighter with you somewhere on you and or in your kit. I'm not saying you have to use it, but have it. The reason I recommend matches though for a beginner is because using matches, once you learn how to use a match properly, it's a very simple skill to learn, much simpler than a ferro rod, and then you can kind of ignore it. And then all you have to do from there is you then learn the skill using the matches of lighting a fire, in the process of lighting a fire, of gathering tinder, gathering kindling, gathering fuel wood, and all of the bits that go in between, and being able to build a fire. Once you're able to do that, you can then start teaching yourself skills like using a ferro rod to do the same job, because at that point you now know how to use a fire. So I recommend matches for that reason, and that reason alone. They're much simpler to learn initially to allow you to practice your physical fire lighting skills rather than the using of the equipment. Then you can focus on more advanced equipment. And of course there's a number of fire lighting methods that we've not mentioned today, like bow drill, hand drill, a number of other primitive ones, including, of course, we did mention flint and steel, but I'm not really discussing that in detail because I'm not that knowledgeable on it. If you want to know about those things, there'll be links down in the description, so go check those out. And I'm not afraid to send you to other content creators and resources if there's something that I don't know, but you want to know, I will try and link it. That's kind of how I'm operating here. So, quickly recap, my primary ferro rod, my go-to or secondary is a lighter. Simple as that. And again, make sure you know how to light a fire, and also remember to know your safety in the woods. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. That is us covered all of the fire lighting items that I wanted to discuss. So that is where we're gonna end it. Hopefully you learned something from this video. But that's it for this one, guys. So if you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like button, and if you're new, please consider subscribing down below as well. Until next time, bye for now.